Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God, and this is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how are you doing? Today, as you can probably tell, I'm going to be talking about books, quite a lot of books. Something that I used to do on my channel when I first started it was book reviews. So if you go back to like my videos from 2012 or 2013, I used to have this series where every month I would talk about the books that I'd read that month, and every now and again I'd make a review just about a particular book that I really liked. But then for some reason in the past few years I've been mainly dedicating my channel to Disney and theatre, just because that's how things went, you know, people enjoyed my theatre vlogs. I ended up going to Disney a lot, and I still do. But recently a lot of you have been saying that you'd quite like me to go back to doing my book reviews, which is really nice because I miss doing them as well. And I watch a lot of booktube myself because whenever I finish a book I want to talk about it, I want to see other people's opinions about it. And sometimes, you know, you can't always guarantee that you have a friend or someone in your real life that has read that book. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do tend to like recommend books constantly to my friends and stuff, but you know, booktube kind of fills that void for me. It's like I kind of always go on YouTube, search something, a book that I've read and somebody has talked about it, and it's just so fun. So I thought I'd do a video today talking about all the books that I read in 2017, because in 2017 I actually read 40 books, and it's the most amount of books I've ever read in 1 year. I kind of made myself a challenge at the beginning of the year to read 40 books. Prior to that, I used to make challenges of reading 50 books, and I never managed to get to 50, and so I thought maybe if I reduce that by 10 books, I'm going to be able to do it, and I did for some reason. Before 2017, the most amount of books that I'd read in a year was, I think, about maybe 31 or 32, which is still not bad, but I'm very happy that I managed to read 40, and the fact is that most of the books that I read last year were really, really good books, and I thought I'd talk about all of them very, very briefly. I do have 17 books. This is not just because it was 2017, it just happens that of all the books that I read, the 40 books that I read, 17 of them stand out to me as being like really, really good, like just amazing books that I would definitely want to reread kind of thing. So with those 17 books that are my absolute favorites, I'm gonna maybe talk about them a little bit more, whereas with the other ones I'm just gonna really quickly tell you about them a little bit and then move on, because if not, this video is gonna be like 5 hours long. So I've got all these books here in front of me, and I'm just gonna go through them very quickly. This one is the first one that I've got here, and it's called Dinosaurs on Other Planets by Danielle McLaughlin, and it's a collection of short stories. And what really attracted me to this book was just the title of it, you know, Dinosaurs on Other Planets. I just thought that was really fun, and this was when I was in a bit of a reading slump as well. I really just wanted a book that would be easy to read, and I thought, oh, a collection of short stories would be a nice way for me to kind of get back into reading. This was back in, I think, September time last year, and I got this, I picked it up, and it is really good. Obviously, with any collection of short stories, not every single one of the short stories are going to be phenomenal. There was some that I liked more than others, like for instance, I think the first one was really good. I can't actually remember because I read it quite a while ago, but there are some really good short stories in it. Not any of the short stories are actually about dinosaurs, just so you're aware. It's more of like a metaphorical thing. They don't include dinosaurs, but they're mainly about like relationships between families and friends and stuff like that. Really, really good. I'm gonna move on really quickly. The next one is The Waterproof Bible by Andrew Kaufman. That is actually the second book I ever read by Andrew Kaufman. The first one I read I'll get to in a second. It's on my list as well, but I read it because I liked the first one that I read, which is All My Friends Are Superheroes, so I wanted to read more by him, and The Waterproof Bible is equally as good. I mean, that's probably a lie. It's not equally as good. I really enjoyed it. I still obviously prefer All My Friends Are Superheroes, but this was also very good. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and it's just a really weird book about someone who goes traveling and then meets a frog. And what I like about Andrew's just writing generally is that he just writes in metaphors constantly, and you know, it's kind of up to the reader to decide what the things that he writes means, and I love that because it makes you think, you know. It's not like, it just basically is up to you. It's your imagination that has to like decide what you want to get out of the book, and I really enjoy that. So that's the next one. Then we've got this book called Gone Again by Doug Johnston. This was a random book. I don't even know why I picked it up, to be honest. It's a book about a man and his son and his wife, but the wife goes missing, and yeah, the man tries to go and find out what happened to the woman, basically, because the police for some reason aren't being helpful enough. I think it's based in Scotland as well, yeah, which was really good. I enjoyed this a lot, actually. It was very gripping because it was about a missing person. I tend to find books like that very gripping if they're written well, and this is written well as well, so I was constantly wanting to find out what happens. But when I finished it, I decided to kind of think about it more, and I was like, nah, I don't think it's actually that good because it's not very believable. What happens in the story, I don't think is very believable. So that's one of my main reasons for not enjoying it as much. I think I only gave it about 3 out of 5 stars, but it was still a fun read. Then the next book, ooh, actually I'm gonna leave that for later because that's one of my top favorites. We've got The Outsiders here. This is quite a famous book. They've made a film out of it as well. and I only read it for the first time this year, or last year, sorry. Look, I always write in my books as well, by the way. This is something that I do. I don't know if you guys do this as well. Leave the comments down below, let me know if you do. But every book that I read, I like to, like, at the end of it, write on the first page when I read it, like what dates I read it and stuff, so I kind of have a sort of idea of like what year I read it and what month, and also like a small paragraph of what I thought about it. So this one I actually, yeah, quite liked it. I feel like this is basically more of a young adults book, but it can be enjoyed by adults as well. It's about a group of gangs in America, and some obviously gang problems and different romance problems. It's really well written though, like I genuinely really enjoyed it, so I'd recommend it if you want something a bit, it's not even light-hearted to be honest, it touches on some cool, good, interesting issues. And then we've got this, A Horse Walks Into a Bar, which, the Man Booker International Prize 2017, it was the winner of the Man Booker Award in 2017, so quite I guess, well-liked book, I guess, and that's why I read it. I wanted to read it, and also the title really again fascinated me. I mean, a horse walks into a bar, a horse, and I love horses as animals, so it really intrigued me. It's by David Grossman, I don't know, and it took me a long time to get into this book. Once I did get into it, I did start to enjoy it, but overall I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars, because basically the whole book is about a stand-up comedy show, and that's why it's so fascinating, because often actually you know, books that win prizes are books that are very unique, or books that have unique ideas in them, ideas that no one else has done before. And this is really good, the fact that obviously the whole setting of the book is basically all throughout it is just a stand-up comedy, and you see the stand-up comedian, it's basically from his perspective most of it, and you see how he throughout the book gets more and more, he shows his personality more and more, and you understand him more and more, and you find out more and more about his life and his problems. It's actually really well written. Like, thinking about it now, the fact that it's still, I remember it very well, it shows how good it was. I just don't think it was very enjoyable as a read. It has some good bits though. Anyway, this is going to go here because it's one of my favourite books. This is also going to go here. The next book we're going to talk about right now is Born Weird by Andrew Kaufman. It's my 3rd Andrew Kaufman novel that I read in 2017. And I liked it because it was called Born Weird, and I feel like I'm a very weird person myself. I've got a Stay Weird bracelet here, which you probably can't even see, but I'm a weird person. I think everyone is weird actually. I like weird people. Weirdness is good because it means you're unique. And I thought, I love Andrew Kaufman's writing, let's give this a go. And of all the 3 books that I've read by him, this is my least favourite book. It took me a long time to finish it just because I just couldn't get into it that much. It's still good. I mean, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, I think. It is good, it's very fascinating. As always, the way he writes is very metaphorical, so it's up to you to, you know, try and find out what you get from it. It's very clever as well. There are some really interesting moments, and when you get to the end of it, you're like, wow, that was actually really, really cool, but just not one of my favourites. I'd still recommend it though. Then we've got this one here, so I'm talking very fast because I want to get through these books. Boy Snowbird. I think for me, the reason I picked this up was just the cover. I'm just going to be honest, the cover looks really cool. It's really nice. And then it's by Helen Oyeyem. And let me just have a quick look inside. Did I write about it? Yeah, of course I did. Ooh, I feel like I've said I've rated it 4 out of 5 stars. No, 3. Ooh, I'd have rated this book a 4.5 out of 5 easily had it not been for its ending. So I can't remember what the ending was actually, but apparently I wasn't a fan of the ending of it. Yeah, but apparently I really enjoyed it though. Like in it I've written that I enjoyed the writing style of the author. It's just for whatever reason I didn't enjoy the last bit of it. It's got a quote from Ali Smith here actually on the cover, one of the most exciting novelists. So yeah, I did really enjoy the style, and obviously as I've written here, I probably enjoyed most of this book as well. It's just when it got to the end, for some reason I wasn't happy with the ending. I don't know why. If you want to find out, go and read it. I liked it. Then we've got this book, which is Stuff I've Been Feeling Lately, which has a really cool cover. Look at this. Let me show it to you this way actually. I don't know how well you can see it. It's basically like a tape. Ooh, can you see this? It's very bright. It's like a, yeah, it's a mixtape kind of thing. And this is a collection of poems, so it's a poetry book. And something that I actually did a lot in 2017, and I'm very happy that I did, was I kind of got into poetry, and I never thought I would, because back when I was at school, back when I was doing English at school and stuff like that, I was never into poems. I never enjoyed poetry. I thought poems were boring and complicated and not the kind of stuff that I enjoyed reading. And this year I'm lucky that quite a few people recommended me some really good poetry books that are easier to grasp and understand if you're a starter, if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily normally like poems. And this one was one of the ones that I just found myself. Actually, this one I wasn't recommended, but I found it online, and I decided to give it a go just because it was really fascinating. And I really did enjoy this. It was I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's really clever. There are some really good poems in there. It's about everything you can think of, really: emotions, love, breakups, everything. And what I do with poetry books is that, like, the ones that I really like, I either underline them or I just like write next to them, oh, I love this so much, like, love this one I've written. And it's basically like track by track. It's as if you're going through a tape, and it's really, really cool. And every single poem at the end of it has something like currently listening to, and it's got a song. So some of the songs I didn't know, obviously, because I'm not that cool, but there were some songs that you know. And what I did whilst I was reading this is that sometimes I would actually, after reading the poem, I'd like go on YouTube and find the song and listen to it, just to see, because like how it relates, the song potentially, to the poem. I thought it was really clever. And what I like even more about the whole poetry book, this book, is that the second half of it, so the first half is just poems, and then the second half is the same poems. Lord, look at that. But some of them are crossed out, some bits of the poems, and so they read out differently. It's so clever how they've done it. So they still mean something, just completely different to what they normally did, because, you know, as you can see, some bits of it are crossed out. So for instance, this one, oh my god, I've put a heart here as well. The original poem, which you would have seen in the first half, is quite long, and the second poem, which you see there, is just like, my life will fix me, because of the bits that this, it's just, I thought it was a very clever concept. So for that alone, I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so I thought it was really cool. I'd never read anything like that before. Then we get to this book, which is actually one of the last books I read in 2017. I read this towards the end of December, and it's called The Kindest Thing by Kath Staincliffe. And this is actually about euthanasia, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm interested about a lot. When I was, back when I was in my A-levels, quite a long time ago now, about 11-12 years ago, I actually did my French A-level oral exam on euthanasia. And it's so funny because back in the days when I did my oral exam, I argued against it. So my whole exam thing was about how much I disagreed with euthanasia. And since that, this was like back in 2008, so yeah, about 10 years ago, since that I've read so many books, and I've read so many cases online, and just read more about it. I've, like, you know, educated myself about it more, and now I'm completely for euthanasia. I feel like euthanasia should be something that's allowed everywhere. Like, it makes me sad that it's still not, you know, acceptable to do it in the UK. Only a couple of countries in Europe allow it. But anyway, this is about euthanasia, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's about a case of euthanasia, and kind of, it's not, I don't really think it's just about that, but it's basically about a case because somebody helps someone die, and then obviously that's illegal in the UK, so then they have to find out whether that person is guilty or not. It's kind of sad, actually, quite well written, but I don't know, it was a bit predictable. Still interesting though. Then we've got another poetry collection. This is actually the first poetry collection book that I read this year. It's called Solo, and I think I read it because either John Green or Hank Green, who you guys probably all know, I recommended the book in one of their videos. It might have been John Green, actually. He's the author, obviously. One half of Vlogbrothers. Anyway, this book is more of a collection of short poetry for teenagers, I'd say, or young adults. But I mean, I enjoyed it still as well. The poems are actually quite long, these, and it's quite a long book as well, quite a big book. But it's good because it's not just a random collection of poetry. All the poems combine to make a story, tell a story towards the end. So like, it's a story just told through poems or like prose, which I really liked. I'd never again read anything like this before, and yeah, I cared a lot about the main character. Some of them, as you can see, are written by from different perspectives. It was just really well written, really nice. It touched me a lot. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really, really recommend it if you want to read if you've never read poems before, like a poetry book before. This is a really good one, I think, to start with. And it's a New York Times best-selling author. Kwame Alexander is the author. Anyway, let's go to the next one. This one is not going to be talked about yet because this is one of my favorites as well. This one is the next one I'm going to talk about, and this is A Girl Is a Half-Formed Thing by Amy McBride. Sorry about the noise outside, guys, cars and everything in London life. This is quite a famous book. Maybe it's a bit of a classic, I'd say, even. They've done plays of this, they've done productions of this, stage versions of it. Anyway, I've been wanting to read this for a long time, and I finally read this towards the beginning of the year. I think it was probably like March or something, March or April. And oh, look at my thoughts again. I mean, Lord. Anyway, it's just fun. Even now, it's only been, what, about like less than a year since I read this. It's fun, it's interesting for me to read back like what I thought. So basically, it's got a very interesting style of writing, and again, it took me a while to just get into the style of it. It's like, I'm just gonna read you one bit. The doctors doing, telling, do not take a note. For them, death is always a matter of quiet. F you, I do not say. Only going, really, yes? No, no, no. Borrow rat hungry in my voice. Chewing the arteries, chew at the ventricles. Basically, it's very like, it's almost like you're inside the brain of the person talking, telling the story, which can be a bit confusing at times and can get a while to get used to. But once you understand the style and kind of get into it a bit, you really start to appreciate it. And for me, that's why I didn't really like it that much. I mean, I enjoyed the fact that it was so well, like, cleverly written. It was such a different style of writing, and a very sad book. Lord have mercy, it's a sad book. The things that happen to the main person, like, it's. I think the message was very beautiful, and it made me think a lot. But as much as I appreciate the fact that it was so interestingly written, I didn't enjoy it. Like, it wasn't a book that, like, it took me a while to read it, and it wasn't a book that I kept thinking, oh, I want to pick it up again and find out more, just because it was quite hard to read. And anyway, I still would recommend it, because it is pretty incredible in terms of the message it's trying to tell and how sad it is. But anyway, I'm gonna put this down as well. The next book, Lord have mercy, just the cover of this. I mean, again, I'm not gonna lie, I got this mainly for the cover because you guys know I love the colour blue, and I just think this is beautiful. I had no idea what it would be about. It's called Miss Jane by Brad Watson, sorry. And Lord have mercy, I actually really enjoyed this book. It was very interesting. It was about a girl who has a problem with her bladder, and it's mainly just about her life, really. And you'd think that would be boring, but it wasn't. I really enjoyed this the more I got into it. And I found it very well written as well. Like, I found the issues that, like, women deal with and girls deal with throughout their lives. I thought it was interesting that it was written by a man, because it's Brad Watson. So well done to Brad Watson, because he, I don't know, like, I very much believed the character of Jane and understood her, and I felt it was very believable and, like, very real. So honestly, like, I forgot halfway through I was reading, I forgot that this was written by a man, by a male author rather than a female, but it isn't, and that's really cool. So again, a great book. Then we've got this book here, which is Nothing to Envy, The Real Lives of North Korea by Barbara Demick. And this is my second ever book that I've written about. I'm sorry, not written about. Sam's an author now. No, this is the second ever book that I've read about North Korea, because towards the beginning of last year, 2017, I became very fascinated with North Korea, like very, and just like obsessed with it, kind of. So I spent the first few months just constantly watching documentaries and reading books and reading articles and just finding out more about it. And this was the second one that I read. I've still got loads more books about North Korea that I'm going to be reading hopefully in 2018. And this was really good. It's about 6 different North Korean people, and it kind of follows their lives and how things happen to them, basically. And we all know how bad North Korea is, really, as a place, but there's always more to learn, and it's just fascinating to, like, read about actual real life stories. So I definitely recommend this. Then, and this one is quite a controversial situation, so The Handmaid's Tale. This has become very popular at the moment because I think the TV show came out last year and everyone raved about it, and I haven't watched the TV show. I don't really watch much TV, but I feel like I kind of want to now, just to see what it's like, because everyone says it's really good. I've never read The Handmaid's Tale. Again, it's one of those books that I've been wanting to read for a long time, because it's a bit of a classic, really, by Margaret Atwood. And yeah, I finally decided to pick it up. I actually bought the book from Shakespeare & Co., which is a really beautiful bookshop in Paris, when I was there in August, and it's got a little stamp of Shakespeare & Co. as well. You probably can't see it. Anyway, it's a good copy, beautiful copy, and I started reading it in September. I got about 100 pages through, and then I just couldn't bother finishing it, and I was just like, nah, this is just I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I decided to leave it for a bit and read other things, because it just wasn't what I thought it would be, and I wasn't finding it compelling enough. And funnily enough, shout out to my friend Sean, he said he felt the same thing, and he told me that he's read it as well, he's tried to read it, and that he definitely thinks the TV show is better, which is so interesting, because normally I'm definitely one of those people who thinks books are always better than TV shows and films. And I don't know, I mean, I haven't seen the TV show, like I said, but anyway, after, like, I read a few other books and stuff towards the end of December, I decided that I wanted to finally complete this, so I went back to it, and as I read more, it got a bit more interesting. And yeah, the first 100 pages I still think were just a bit too dragged out. Don't get me wrong, the writing is beautiful, like, it's very well written, but just not much happens, and then suddenly you're into something quite crazy, and you're like, whoa. And it is beautiful. It's got some lovely messages, and like the last maybe 50 pages of it I read very quickly because I just was very engrossed in it. But overall I was quite disappointed. I just felt like, having heard about this so much, I just always thought it would be a lot better. and it wasn't for me. I still like the author, like her writing's great, so I'd definitely write or read more from her or by her, but I don't know, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars if you go on my Goodreads account, which, you know, might be a bit controversial, everyone seems to love it, but there you go. Another book that I was quite disappointed with, and I think this is actually my lowest rating of the books that I read in 2017, is Days Without End by Sebastian Barry, which is this book here. Again, I have no idea why I even got this book. To be fair, it's probably because, Costa Book of the Year 2016 is what this book was. And it's had very good reviews. Even on Goodreads, if you go on it, it's got like 4.7 ratings from people. Like, it's incredible. People love it. I don't know what I didn't get about it. Again, for me, I think it's mainly the writing style. It's about 2 boys in Ireland, which is really cool. And then they kind of go into war. It's just like the Civil War and Indian people and fighting, and it's just not my kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, again, it does have some beautiful passages and some great messages, but it just, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the process of reading it, so that's why I didn't rate it very highly. And then we've got this book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, which is this book here, quite a famous book as well. I read this in May of 2017. And it's funny because initially I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, like I really enjoyed it. And then when I thought back to it, I was like, I don't think it deserves 5 stars. I think my main problem with it was just the writing. I feel like it was just a little bit maybe pretentious, a little bit samey. It was clever, like don't get me wrong, when I was reading it I did find it very fascinating. It basically just gives you a unique idea of heaven and kind of what happens when you die and the people you meet. And I mean, as I'm going back to it now, I feel like I've underlined actually quite a lot of sentences in it which I thought were quite clever. It's I don't know, you might think it's a bit preachy, but I didn't think the writing was very well, but it was just a very fascinating concept and I did enjoy reading it. I read it very quickly as well, so I think 4 out of 5 stars is a good rating for it. Then we've got this book here, which was a really random book again that I picked up, How to Look for a Lost Dog. And this was a very easy read, like look how big the writing is. So I read it I think in like a day or something, and I didn't actually expect much from this book when I read it, but I ended up loving it. I actually gave this 5 out of 5 stars, even though it's not made it into my top 17 books of 2017, because I just didn't love it that much. I did think it was really good, and I still gave it 5 out of 5. But basically, it's basically about a girl who's autistic, and her dog gets lost, and it's just really nicely written. It's just, I can't explain to you. It's very, very beautifully written. And what I'm going to say is, if you want to read something nice and heartwarming, go and read this. It's really great. Then we've got this book here, which is called The Museum of You by Carrie Spray. And I was really fascinated about this book, just the title of it, Museum of You. What does that mean? What could that mean? And I really enjoyed this. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And I read this, it was again one of the books that I read towards the beginning of the year, so I don't remember it too well at the moment. But from what I can remember, it was about a girl who decides to make a museum of her mum, about her mum, for her dad, because her mum's died and her dad doesn't tell her much about her mum, and she wants to know more, so she kind of goes around and finds stuff from her mum and tries to surprise her dad about it. It was very beautifully written. I really enjoy her style of writing, actually, Carrie Spray. This is the second book. I read 2 of her books basically last year, and I haven't got to the second one yet, I don't think. But this one was really beautiful, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Ooh, then we've got this book here, the Gustav Sonata. Now this, Lord have mercy, this had potential to become one of my favorite books of 2017. Like, it could have easily become one of my favorites. I actually read this when I was in Spain back in April, I can't remember when it was. I was in Spain for a few days on my own, and I read it by the beach, and it was lovely. It was a beautiful setting reading it, and it's a really nice book. It's about 2 friends during World War II, and it's like, some of it is like it's set in Switzerland, which was really cool for me because I was born in Switzerland. And Lord have mercy, look how much I've written about this, because I had so many opinions about this, like there, basically I've said, I got into this book very quickly and cared for every character immediately, hence why I finished the book in practically 1 day. I thought it was beautifully written, the chapters were each very well structured and left me curious to read more. I loved Gustav and Anton's friendship, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say more actually, in fact, in case I've put spoilers. I don't think I have. But basically, oh yeah, I think what I've said here is that I honestly thought the first 2/3 of the book were perfect, and this book was quickly on its way to becoming one of my favorites. But the plot in the last 30 pages or so really let me down. I thought everything was suddenly rushed and the outcome was predictable. I still adore the first 200 pages of this book though, and will think of the 7 Anton for a long time. So there you go, this is how I felt about it. I think I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars, not even 4, just because of how like disappointed I felt about the situation. Like I loved it so much and then suddenly things went wrong, in my opinion. You might read it and like it. But anyway, I still think it's a good book. Obviously I adored the first 200 pages. Then we get to this book now. Wow. Again, the cover of this book, like look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? I've been recommended this book by quite a few people, and I was reading this at work as well, and quite a few of my workers were like, oh my god, Sam, this is a great book, like when I had just started reading it. And this is written by Amy Liptrot, and it was the winner of the Wainwright Prize 2016. And it's kind of like a half biography kind of thing about Amy's life and how she tries to beat alcoholism. So she used to be an alcoholic, and it's her journey into becoming sober. And you might think that's boring. I promise you it's not. This book is so well written, like so beautiful. Like again, it's one of those books where every few pages I've underlined stuff, because it was just like, I relate to this. And that I'm not an alcoholic, guys, and I've never been an alcoholic, but some of the stuff that she says everyone can relate to, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And it's kind of, a lot of it is actually set in Scotland as well, in like the islands of Scotland, which now has made me want to travel to Scotland and visit all these islands, because they sound beautiful, the way she describes them. I mean, Lord. And she lived in London at times as well, which is also very relatable for me because I live in London. I just thought her writing style is phenomenal. There was some chapters where she kind of goes on and on about these birds. I can't remember what they're called, like, and they did get a little bit tedious and boring for me personally. But they also, at the same time, made me a bit interested in them and made me want to kind of learn about them a little bit more. But obviously it's her life, so she's very interested in them, so that's why she's talking about them. I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really wanted to give it 5 out of 5 stars, but the fact that there were just some chapters that I wasn't that keen on, just because of my personal interest, like, you know, I can't, it's her life, so she has certain interests that I just wasn't that into. That was the only reason. But her writing style, the way she thinks about things, absolutely beautiful. Loved it. And the next one we have is a book called They Both Die at the End. I mean, what a title. I think anyone seeing this would want to read it. I found it just very intriguing. I was like, what the hell? Do they actually both die at the end? You know, it's very interesting. I didn't realize that this was actually a young adult's book until I picked it up. It's very easy to read again, very quick, and it's basically told in like alternative narratives about 2 boys. Not actually, just, I think there might be other people as well. Not just the 2 boys, but other people as well, but mainly the 2 guys who are involved. And it's about a life in which apparently before you die, 24 hours before you die, you get a call telling you that you're about to die, like you're going to die this day, but they don't tell you exactly what time, kind of thing. So I don't know if it's a dystopian novel or not. I guess it kind of is, because that's not how we live. But that's the only thing that's kind of weird about the kind of in the universe that they live in. Everything else seems to be just a normal universe. 2 guys get the call, obviously, so that means they're both going to die that day. Or are they? Maybe they're not going to die, who knows. I do recommend this. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was really nicely written, just really fun. Just nice. I don't really like young adult books anymore. I used to like them when I was a bit younger, but it's just they're not really my thing anymore. So when every now and again I do come across one that young adult book, I'm like, actually that's really good. It makes me really happy, and that's one that I did really enjoy. So yeah. The next book I read in 2017 is this, which again, what a beautiful cover. Look at it. Quite a small book, and it's called The Salmon Who Dared to Leap Higher by An Do-hyun, who I believe is a Korean writer. The international multi-million copy bestseller is what it says. And I love this book. Like, you might think it's a bit of a weird situation, because it literally is about a salmon who dared to leap higher. It's about a salmon's journey. Like, honestly, that's literally what it is. But it's so well written, and it's so metaphorical. It makes you think, because yes, it is about a salmon, but it's kind of about real life as well. You can relate to it. There are some pictures every now and again as well, not a lot, but every now and again you have pictures like this. And here I've said something. I'm just going to read you what I said. I started to finish this book on the same day, Wednesday, 15th of November 2017. I read it from around 4 AM to 6 AM, so technically Thursday 6. Oh, thank you, Samar, for telling us this. Absolutely loved it. So whimsical and beautifully written and bizarre, but also very human, despite being purely about a salmon's journey. I felt every emotion. I'd recommend it and read it again. So yeah, I did really enjoy this. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but again, even though I loved it, it didn't make it into my top 17. The last book that I want to show you before I go to my top 17 is this book, which again I read towards the end of last year. It's called A Song for Izzy Bradley, and it's the second book I've ever read by Caris Bray. The other one was The Museum of You, and again the cover of this was what attracted me to it. I mean, beautiful, look at that. I just love blue, and oh, just makes me so happy. And also I have a friend called Izzy who you might all know if you watch my Vlogmas videos and stuff, and I just thought, oh, it'd be cool to read a book about Izzy. The story was not at all what I expected. It's about a Mormon family, like a very, very religious Mormon family, and someone in that family dies, and it's about how they cope with it and the grief. And literally, it's one of the saddest books I've ever read. Like, I felt so sad throughout the whole book, honestly. There was some humorous moments, but overall it was just sad. Like, it made me depressed almost. It was very sad, and I think even though it's very well written, like, still I'm excited to read even more by Caris Bray, because I've enjoyed both of her books. I just didn't enjoy the fact that it just put me down. Like, I did not feel happy, and even at the end of it I didn't feel like I accomplished it. I just didn't feel like there was any, I can't explain it. Basically the whole thing is about grief, and it shows grief very well from everyone's different perspective in the family and how they all deal with it. And you know, obviously the Mormon thing as well, that's really interesting. As someone who's obviously not a Mormon, I found it interesting to learn about that religion a bit more and how they deal with it. The dad in this book did annoy me quite a bit, but then you get to understand his perspective on things as well. I don't know, I just didn't like the way I felt whilst I read it. Like, it didn't satisfy me. It just made me sad. Like, I was very down reading it. So yeah, I still recommend it though. Really good writing. And now we are going to get to the last 17 books, which are my absolute favourite books of 2017. Oh, I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but there is still more to come. So this is the pile, and we are going to go through them. I'm not going to put them in order. I'm just going to say that these are my 17 favourite books that I read in 2017. So the first one I've got here is My Name is Leon by Kit de Wol. This is one of the first books I actually read in 2017 as well, so it kind of makes sense that I'm showing it to you now. And I love this book. All the characters were likeable and relatable in one way or another. Throughout the book I felt so sad for Leon, but his character development was also so well done and realistic that it wasn't just pity and sympathy that I felt for him. Blah blah blah. I can't wait to read more books. Basically, this is about a boy called Leon. He's, I think, 9 or 10, and his little brother gets taken away from him for various reasons because his mom's not able to look after them properly, and it's about his journey through like foster homes and little things like that. It's just very well written, and you know, you might think this is typical and there are many books written about such topics, but nah, it was very nicely written, and Leon was such a believable character, and the people that he meets are very believable. I just really I remember really enjoying reading this book, and I read it very quickly as well, and this is the author, and I'll definitely read more by her. So there you go, My Name is Leon, #1. Then we've got this book, oh, Lord have mercy, this is such a good book. So this is called Nasty Women, and it's a collection of essays and accounts on what it is to be a woman in the 21st century. Now honestly guys, I feel like if you're a woman, 100% you need to read this. Like, every girl in the world should read this, just because it's just so interesting, it's so eye-opening, it's just good to hear about other women's voices in the world. It's actually this is a company, 404 Inc. I think it's called. It's a Scottish publishing place, and most of the people who have written in this are Scottish, which is also interesting. I've underlined so many stuff here, by the way. Again, as essays are, a collection of essays are, not every single essay touched me as much as some did, so I obviously enjoyed some more than the others. The first one's actually about Independence Day, and like it kind of talks about Donald Trump and when he became president, and then there are some about black feminism online, claiming digital space, living with the consequences of contraception. Basically, it kind of touches about almost everything that women go through in the 21st century, different issues that we face, and every essay is written by a different kind of person, different like backgrounds, different nationalities maybe, just different races. It's so good. It just made me happy, it made me proud to be a woman, it made me think, it just made me, I don't know, it's just a great book. And yeah, please read it. Even if you're a guy, you don't have to be a girl to read this. Anyone should read this, but obviously if you're a girl, definitely 100% read this. It is really good. Then we've got In Order to Live, which was the very first book on North Korea that I read, by Yeonmi Park, which is this lovely girl here. She's younger than me, guys. It's crazy, but she actually managed to escape North Korea, and this is kind of her account of what it was like to live there, when she used to live there when she was younger, how she managed to escape North Korea. And it is tough. Like, reading this, I cried so many times, and it just kind of made me even more interested in North Korea and to learn more about it, because the whole country, basically the whole situation, that just makes me so sad, and I constantly think about it. I'm like, is there anything we can do to help that country? But anyway, this is just very well written, and it's just very hard to read. There are some pictures actually of her as well, because it's like a biography more or less about her time there and how she escapes it, and it's a really good insightful book about life in North Korea. So definitely recommend it. Then we've got this book here called Salt to the Sea by Ruta Septies, and this is actually, I'd say, a young adult book as well, which I didn't realize before I purchased it, but I was fine with it because it's actually again really well written, and it got the Philip Carnegie Medal 2017. This is about a group of young adults throughout World War II, and their journey, their adventures, how they escape it. They're all kind of from different countries, with different tasks, doing different things, and they kind of all meet at one point, and every chapter is written by there's like I think 4 of them, a different perspective, and it's so beautiful, it's so fascinating, so sad, so well written for a young adult book, and I loved it. I really loved it. I generally just enjoy books about World War II. I don't know why, I just do. And I thought this was very well done and a really kind of interesting take on it. It's also basically about the Wilhelm Gustloff, which is it's, believe it or not, it says here, the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff is the deadliest disaster in maritime history, with losses dwarfing the death tolls of the famous ships Titanic and Lusitania. Yet remarkably, most people have never heard of it. So the Gustloff, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, was a ship throughout World War II, and it sank. And I had never heard of this. I genuinely had never heard of it before I read this book. But it's like it says here, it was even deadlier than the Titanic, and so many people lost their lives throughout it. And now it's one of those things that I've become very interested in. I want to learn about more, like North Korea. But it's about a part of history, I guess, that not many people might know about, and it's basically a historical fiction book. So I liked it. I recommend it a lot. Then we've got a book here, Lord. I mean, this just makes me happy, just the cover of it. It's called Salt. Where does it say Salt? Just here. Very small. By Naira Wahid, who is a phenomenal like author, poetry writer, poem writer, and I'm so glad I've kind of started to read poetry, because there are some beautiful poems out there, and this is a collection of those. Like, I would recommend this to anyone. So it's basically a collection of poems, as I've just said, some of them long, some of them short, but every single one of them, I'm being serious, like every single one of them touched me, some of them more than others, but they're all so beautiful. She writes so well, and they just make you feel happy. If you need a bit of a pick-me-up, just read these books, these poems, because they will inspire you. I mean, I'm just looking at them now, and I'm gonna read this like so many times. Like, I follow her on Instagram as well. I don't know if it's like, I just follow a page where like there's an Instagram thingy account where you get to they post these poems quite constantly. So do that as well if you want to, just to get reminders of these poems on a daily basis. It is beautiful. I recommend it to absolutely anyone. Whew. And then we've got this one. I mean, I'm just so passionate about these books. These top 17 books of mine, they're all so good that I just don't know how to even talk about them. So Autumn by Ali Smith. Lord have mercy, I cannot wait to read more by her. I can't believe it's the first thing I've ever written, read by her, because she is phenomenal. She's already got a new collection out that came out a couple of months ago called Winter, and she's got obviously other books out as well. She is a great author, like Lord. So basically, I read this towards the end of autumn because I thought, oh, quite appropriate. And I'm going to just very quickly read the back of it. Daniel is a century old. Elizabeth, born in 1984, has her eye on the future. The United Kingdom is in pieces, divided by a historic once-in-a-generation summer. Love is won, love is lost, hope is hand in hand with hopelessness. The seasons roll around as ever. It's basically, I think, mainly a story about friendship between a young woman and an older man. But it's kind of also the descriptions that you read throughout this book are so beautiful. It takes you throughout autumn in some weird ways. It's not just necessarily about autumn, but you feel autumn as you read stuff, as you read the story. I just love her writing style, like lordy, like look at the bits that I've highlighted. I mean, this is such a beautiful book. I already want to read it again. And yeah, I just love her style of writing, and her descriptions are very beautiful. It's quite easy to read as well, different. It will take a while to get used to, but very nice to read. She kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but she kind of talks about art every now and again into the story, like different portraits and stuff. all I can say is just go and read this. I'm really sorry that I can't explain it better, but this is a really good book and you should go and read it. Okay, next one. Lord, this book. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Grief is a Thing with Feathers. This is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read in my life. It's a short book, but whoa. And I read this at a time where I was quite sad. I wasn't necessarily grieving, but I was not the happiest. I read this earlier in the year, like it was around April time or May time in 2017 that I read it, so it really spoke to me. And it's so beautifully written. It is about grief, obviously. It's about a family's way of coping with someone's death. And there's a crow in the book, and some of the chapters are written from the perspective of the crow, like this one. And I'm about to cry. I genuinely think I'm about to cry just thinking back to this book, because it is so beautifully written, and it kind of just describes grief so well and how people go through grief and a family and the dad. And I'm just gonna very quickly read one bit of it for you. We sit in silence and I realize I am grinning. I recognize some of it. I believe him. I absolutely blissfully believe him, and it feels very familiar. Beautiful. Another bit. Once upon a time there were two boys who purposefully misremembered things about their father. It made them feel better if ever they forgot things about their mother. Like, there are some beautiful bits in here, and oh my god, it's just so relatable. Like, if you've ever lost someone, you will relate to this. It's the book that I will go back to many times in my lifetime and reread like many times. So loved it. Then we've got this book here, which is called The Good Immigrant, and this is a collection of essays about immigrants in the UK, which I found so fascinating. Every single essay was insightful in its own way, taught me something new. Obviously, as you guys can probably tell, like, I'm not British, I'm not English. I don't know if I would be called or considered an immigrant necessarily, but I'm not English, and yet I live in the UK, and like, I'm Middle Eastern, I've got dark hair, my skin color is different, like, I'm not white. So a lot of these essays I just felt like I related to. Not all of them, because some of them are from different, like, it's basically from different people. There are some Asian, like Chinese people potentially, black people, different nationalities who live in the UK and their experiences, and they were just so interesting, so fascinating. I feel like everyone, if you live in London, you should definitely read this, especially London, because it's a home to so many international people. It will be an eye-opening situation for you, so please read that. The next book that I'm going to talk about is this book here, another absolute favourite of mine, All My Friends Are Superheroes by Andrew Kaufman. This is the first ever Andrew Kaufman book that I read. Lordy! I love how the police car literally has just gone by exactly as I dropped this. That was very appropriate. Anyway, this is a very simple story about people and friends, and how this person's friends are all different superheroes. And it's very weird, like very bizarre. But it's very unique, very compelling, very interesting. It made me think about, after just reading what I wrote here, I've said it made me think about myself, my flaws and my strengths, my friends, my life, and ultimately gave me a sense of hope and self-acceptance. So that's very nice. Well done, Andrew Kaufman. But it's just so cleverly written. It's so beautiful. The fact that I just want to meet Andrew Kaufman and just find out how he thinks, because his mind is just very fascinating and interesting. Yeah, I feel like that's all I can say about it. It's a very weird, small book, and very cleverly written. Just please go and read this, please. It's small, you can read this, you can afford to read this, guys. It's not going to take you long to read it, and you won't regret it. The next book is another poetry book that I read, and it's probably my favourite poetry book that I've read this year or last year, and it's Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. She's actually got a new collection of poems out recently as well, which I'm going to buy soon and hopefully read in 2018. But this is kind of again, you know when books really like touch you and you go back to them? This is basically kind of divided into 4 different categories. The first bit is called the hurting, then there's the loving, the breaking, the healing. So if you need to be healed, if your heart is broken for whatever reason, this is like the perfect thing for you to read. And all the poems again are beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and there are some nice illustrations as well that go with them every now and again. It is just, it's one of those things I wish I'd read like earlier in my life, because you know everyone goes through sad times and heartbreak and hurt and stuff, and I feel like it would have helped me so much when I was very low, and I feel like it can help you even now. Like, even when I read it, I wasn't necessarily at a bad place in my life, but it still helped me, it still made me happy, it still inspired me, it was still beautiful. But yeah, this is again one of those collection of poems I would definitely go back to. Like every now, I just enjoy having it near me, because every now and again I just feel like opening it and reading one of the poems from it, because it's really nicely written. The next book, whew, this book now, Lore. This is a worldwide bestseller, and this was actually gifted to me by my mum at the beginning of last year. So my mum's actually written on it. For my lovely daughter, 1st of January 2017, love you. Thank you, Mum. So she recommended it to me. And I read it when I was again in Spain, back in May of last year. And it's about a neurosurgeon. And the first kind of half of the book is about just kind of his life as a neurosurgeon, how he got into it, the difficulties of being a surgeon, all that stuff. And I found that fascinating just on its own, because I used to study science, and at one point in my life I wanted to be a doctor. I don't know why. So it was very interesting for me to see how things go and how things work. But then halfway through the book, and this isn't a spoiler, it's just this is what the story's about. He gets a terminal disease himself, so he unfortunately dies. and again, please don't think it's a spoiler, this is very common knowledge about the book. But the second half of the book is about how he copes with the terminal illness, and how he kind of has to go from being a doctor to a patient, and how he so willingly accepts death. Like he's not scared of it, yet he doesn't let it kind of bother him either. He just lives on from as much as he can. And obviously he wrote this book himself, and he wrote this kind of just before he died. He never got to properly finish it, so his wife does the last chapter. But it's just great. This is fantastic. It's definitely one of my top books of 2017, and it's one that I would recommend to anyone. I think it's just beautiful. It made me it made me hopeful in some ways. It inspired me. I'm just going to read what I've written, sorry. Yeah, it was inspiring and weirdly comforting is what I've written. Like, it comforted me to know that someone can deal with dying and a terminal disease so well. I mean, I'm not saying that the guy just like happily was like, yeah, I'm about to die, but it's just he was so strong throughout it, and I don't know, I loved it a lot. The next book I want to talk about is a classic by George Orwell, Down and Out in Paris and London. It's a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time, and I took it with me to Paris when I went on a holiday back in August with my friend Arzu, and I read it by the Eiffel Tower, by the Seine. It was such a great setting to read this book, and I absolutely loved it. Like, one of my favorite classics of all time. I mean, I love George Orwell just generally. I think he's one of the best authors I've ever read anything by, but this is one of my favorite books by him. And it's just, he describes poverty in London and Paris so well. Like, you feel so sad and sometimes disgusted whilst you're reading it, but it's just the descriptions of it that are so well done, and the characters are very well described, and you believe them. I mean, there are some, again, I've got so many bits underlined, like, fear of the mob is a superstitious fear. It is based on the idea that there is some mysterious fundamental difference between rich and poor, as though they were two different races, like Negroes and white men. But in reality, there is no such difference. The mass of the rich and the poor are differentiated by their incomes and nothing else, and the average millionaire is only the average dishwasher dressed in a new suit. Like, how beautiful is that? Go and read that, guys. Beautiful book. Then we've got this book here, which is also a phenomenal book. I mean, this is basically called The Hate You Give, or Thug, very cleverly done, by Angie Thomas. Sorry, I was about to say Thomas. Angie Thomas, and it's quite a big book, but it's I'd say this is actually more of a young adult's book as well, but anyone can enjoy it. And it's a very sad book actually about a girl, like a teenager, and her best friend. Early on in the book, I'm not giving any spoilers, gets shot by a policeman because he's black. And it touches on so many issues in regards to race and class, and oh, this is such a sad book. It's very eye-opening, very important. I think everyone should read this and understand this, because there are still some problems in the world about race. Racism is still a thing, it very much is, and this just reminds you of that, and it's very sad but very eye-opening, and I just enjoyed it a lot. So, great book. Then we've got two books I'm going to talk about both very quickly. They're both by Elizabeth Strout, who has now become one of my favourite authors as well. I can't wait to read more from her. The first one I read was Olive Kitteridge, and this is slightly bigger. And the second one is called My Name is Lucy Barton. I gave both of these 5 out of 5 stars. I loved both of these. I love her writing style. She is phenomenal. The first one is about Olive Kitteridge, who is a person, and it's so interesting because this book, one of the reasons I loved it so much is that each chapter is kind of a completely different setting, and the main person in that chapter is a different person, and yet every chapter still features Olive Kitteridge in a weird way. Oh, it's so clever, lordy. And this is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. This has actually won it, so well done. Yeah, it just made me think so much. It has so many great messages, like, woo, it is just beautiful. Again, I've underlined so many things. I actually already want to reread this because I feel like I've forgotten parts of it, but really beautiful. And then this one here, My Name is Lucy Barton, is, I think, came out a bit later than that one. It's a bit shorter, and this is basically mainly about a mother and a daughter. I think I enjoyed Olive Kitteridge more generally, but I enjoyed both of them. But yeah, this one's about a mother and a daughter and their relationship, and again, it has some beautiful quotes. Like one of my, there was a quote in here that I loved so much, and I never do this, I very rarely do this, but I loved it so much that I had to actually like take a picture of it and put it on Instagram. I can't remember where the quote is now, but if you want to go on my Instagram, you'll probably be able to find it. Oh no, I found it. Whew. Can I just read this for you guys, because it is beautiful. So, I have said it before. It interests me how we find ways to feel superior to another person, another group of people. It happens everywhere, all the time. Whatever we call it, I think it's the lowest part of who we are. This need to find someone else to put down. Like, how, like, self-aware is that? So many people are like that, unfortunately, and it's just great to read about these things, guys. It makes you understand yourself more, try to improve yourself. Yeah, loved that book so much. Loved the author, can't wait to read more from her. Then we've got this book here, which is another one of those weird books like the salmon one, quite short, and it's called The Hen Who Dreamed She Could Fly by Sun-Mi Huang. International bestseller, more than 2 million copies sold. Now this is literally about a hen who dreamed she could fly, yet it's one of the most sad books I've ever read. I felt for that hen so much about her journey. I cried towards the end of the book. Like, Lord, it's again one of those really clever books where it's basically about animals, it's about hens and stuff, and there are a couple of illustrations as well every now and again. But even though it's a simple story, in the bigger picture, like if you feel like you can relate it to just like anyone, like yourself, your life, humans, and I loved it so much. I recommended it to my friends. I got my friend Izzy to read it. She enjoyed it. I don't think she enjoyed it as much as I did, but she still enjoyed it. And I cannot wait to, again, probably reread it at one point, and definitely I'm going to recommend it to everyone because it's such a good book. And now we get to one of my absolute favourite books of 2017. Like I said, none of these are in order, but this is definitely one of my favourites, probably my top 5, I'd say. And I mean, just the cover itself, look at the cover, how beautiful is it? This is called Homegoing by Ya Gyasi. I hope I said it right, it might be Gyasi, sorry. But yeah, it's a Sunday Times bestseller. And oh my god, so this actually is it's the first book she's ever written, which I was so surprised by when I read it, like, because she writes so well. This is the author. I'm going to show you a picture of her, and I cannot wait to read more from her. But this is about slavery, about racism, about many difficult issues really. But it's just so clever because I'll show you this. There's a little family tree situation which you have in the beginning of the book, and you might think, oh, that's going to make things complicated. I normally find things like that a bit like confusing, but I promise you it's not. Because basically every chapter, it's about 2 sisters mainly, and different fates that they both had, and yeah, every chapter is about one of these people. So it basically starts out with the 2 different sisters, and each of these sisters obviously then has their own journey, and each chapter is written by either one of the sisters, or like then their daughter or their son, and it kind of, the whole novel just goes to like hundreds of years. Like, it's very weird. It's one of the most unique books I've read again, but it's just so beautifully written that you really care about every single character. It's so weird. I didn't think I would at first, because like I said, every chapter is about a different character of the same ancestry, descendants, if that makes any sense. But it's just the topics that it touches about. It makes you so sad. Again, it's about racism, slavery, so many other things about America and things that were wrong with it. And it's just, you just care about the characters so much. I cannot explain to you how beautiful this book is. Again, it's one of those books that I'm 100% going to read again. I'm not the kind of person that normally enjoys rereading books, but this I already want to reread it because I feel like I'd get so much more out of it on second reading. It's just such a beautifully written book. That's all I can say. Beautifully written, covers so many important themes, and just very fascinating as well, the fact that it goes through, like, I think hundreds of years, and you kind of start from those 2 daughters that I showed you in the diagram there, and then you kind of get to meet and learn about the people that come after them. So honestly, Ya Gyasi, cannot wait to read more stuff by her. This was phenomenal, like a phenomenal debut. I'm so glad that it's been getting the recognition it deserves, because it is beautiful. And yeah, I think that's about it. Lord have mercy, I am now here by this table with like so many books just everywhere. But that's it for this book. I really hope you enjoyed this. Leave comments down below and let me know what your favorite book was of 2017, if you read any that you really liked, if you're excited about me doing more book videos like this, because I know quite a few of you have been messaging me, and especially on Instagram, and asking me to do them, and I'm so excited to be doing them again myself. Like, I used to love filming such videos, and I feel like, I don't know, it's gonna make me happy. It's gonna be a fun thing for me as well to hopefully maybe just learn about more books myself. Like, by doing this, I'm hoping to then hear your opinions if you guys read as well. Also feel free to definitely add me on Goodreads. I'll leave my link down below. Goodreads.com is a website that you can basically track the books that you read, like how many books you read. You can, every book that you read, you can kind of put it there, track it. It's almost like an online library of your books, and then you can read other people's reviews on them. It's so good. It's almost like a social media website for book lovers. So even if you don't have it, maybe make yourself an account on Goodreads. It might motivate you to read more. It might help you discover new books. For me, it's a great way to see what other people are reading, what my friends are reading, and then kind of get an idea of what they think of the books and whether or not I want to read them. It's a really great book website kind of thing. And yeah, so basically what I'm going to do is that I think at the end of every month, or at the end of every 2 months, I'll do like a video wrap-up thing talking about the books I read in that month. And of course, by the end of next year, I'm going to do a full video again talking about my favorite books of 2018. This year I'm hoping to read 50, by the way. Last year I managed 40, and I think this year I can finally achieve my goal of reading 50. We'll see if it happens or not. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. But I'm on a good track, I think, right now. I've already read 2 books this year, so hopefully it should be alright. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Sorry about the length of this video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Leave comments down below, please, and let me know just a book that you really like, that you think I might not have read before, because I'm always up for suggestions. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!